What's going on, guys? TheAireaidLord, welcome back to another top 5 video. This one is going to be for Halo 5, going back to the roots. This is going to be the top 5 enemies that I want to see in Halo 5 Guardians. As always, we've got some Halo footage for you in the background. Halo 3, might be a little Halo 2 sprinkled in there. We'll see what I can dig up. But let's get started with this list. We'll be doing the top 5 from 5 to 1. So far, let's see, we have done a couple of these, and now I think I'm going either on my 4th or 5th one for Halo 5 specifically. The other day I did one for the next Call of Duty game, which was, it was kind of mixed reviews, and I'm not sure if I'll just stick to Halo based on that consensus, but we'll see going forward. We'll see what the consensus is based on the comment and the perception of my future videos. But we'll get started with the countdown nonetheless. We'll start with number 5 here. We'll start with the 5th enemy that I'd like to return for Halo 5. This is going to be the Skirmishers. They are an enemy type from Halo Reach. I think Reach was the only game that they appeared in. They are the cousins of the Jackals, according to Bungie and the Wiki. And they, although they look exactly like the Jackals, they do have a different appearance. And they also have a type of verticality. They jump, they move around. They're kind of almost like rabbits, kind of very fast and ferocious. Their shields, they carry them on the sides. They're almost like shields, like arm shields. They're almost like a wrist gauntlet, and it has a shield on the side. So as opposed to the Jackals that use the shield almost like a phalanx, these enemies, the Skirmishers, kind of put them to the side. You can still kill them with a headshot from like a DMR or a pistol, just like the Jackals if you shoot them in the head. But these enemies are a bit faster, and it's a bit more difficult to actually get up close and personal, or actually land a good shot. They were frustrating, no doubt. They used rifles just like the Jackals did, like the carbine, or I think some of them had the focus rifle. There was no beam rifle in Halo Reach. Then obviously they had plasma pistol, needlers, just the same kind of Covenant weaponry that we've seen Jackals use in previous Halo games. And I think it would be interesting for them to come back. We have not had them in a 3-4-3 game yet. They were not in the Covenant ranks of Halo 4, and I think their addition would add a different measure, almost like the creepy crawly monsters of the Prometheans. I think they would make an excellent addition, so that we have that Covenant counterpart for an enemy type. So that's the reason I want the Skirmishers. Number 4 on our list are the drones. These are the flying bug things that attack you, I believe, in Halo 2-3. They're in every single Halo game except Halo 1 and Halo 4. And they're a bit different in every iteration. In Halo 2 and 3, they're about the same. You shoot them a few times. It's just only a few bullets it takes and they die. ODST, there's a new faction that has a shield. One of them actually has a shield and wields a plasma rifle, which makes them a lot harder, especially when there's the Tough Luck skull and some of the harder skulls that reflect human guns weaponry. And then in Halo Reach, they're only in 2 or 3 levels, and I'm not even sure if they're... I don't know if you can select them as an adversary in Firefight. I'll have to go back and check that out. But I'm almost certain they're not. I don't think you're allowed to use them in the Firefight game mode. But I'll have to check on that. In Halo Reach, if you shoot them, they actually explode like a piñata. It's kind of funny. But they were in the game, but they're really not around that much. So it would be cool because they changed up the atmosphere, especially if you had hunters and drones together. There were some areas of Halo games where that was the case, and that was a hellish situation. So I would definitely like to see the Prometheans, or not the Prometheans, the drones return for the next Halo game. By the way, if you haven't noticed, with this countdown, I'm kind of trying to target the enemies that have not had as much time as other enemies. Like the elites have been in every single Halo game except for Halo 3. They were in Halo 3, but they weren't adversaries, okay? So, and ODST, I guess you can say. So the elites have been the adversaries for most of the Halo games. even if they weren't the main adversary in every single Halo game. But they're kind of the staple enemy. So I almost expect them to return. We had the Storm Covenant in Halo 4, so we were fighting the Elites yet again, which I didn't really like. But I'm assuming we're going to be fighting the Storm Covenant again. It looks like the Arbiter and the good Elites will be returning, so it's going to be interesting to see how the Arbiter fights his fellow brother and Elites who are still loyal to the Covenant. It's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic occurs. But anyway, back to the countdown. I just thought I'd mention that really quickly. Number 3 on the list is the Flood. I kind of want the Flood to return as a scarier counterpart as they were in Halo 1. I think if they returned to the series with more of a scary vibe, but also some diversity. If you guys remember in Halo 3, we actually had ranks of the Flood. We had Hunter Flood, we had Floods that could stick to the wall and shoot projectiles. We had different types of Flood. Flood that would be brutes would run differently. A Flood that were Elites would have shields. There were kind of different dynamics for the Flood in Halo 3. We have not seen them since Halo 3, if you actually remember. They were not in ODST or Reach, and they were not in Halo 4 either. So it'll be interesting to see if they return in Halo 5. I'm not sure if the events of Halo 3, where you destroy the Ark with the Gravemind, I'm not sure if that made the Flood go extinct, but I have a feeling they're still out there. They're the dreaded enemies of the Forerunners, and I'd have to imagine they would be still in the game. So I'm going to go on a limb to say that. Maybe with the Master Chief going MIA, he'll run into them randomly. You never know. So I'm hoping that they make a return in some fashion. For the campaign, of course. That's the main thing I'm focusing on here. Number 2, obviously, is the Prometheans. I obviously want them to return. They were a good adversary for Halo 4. They were the main adversaries for Halo 4. They were the new enemy type, the big new enemy type we had. You had the Knights, the Watchers, the Crawlers, and I believe that was it. I don't think there were any other enemy types. The Crawlers were kind of almost like the Grunts, where you could shoot them in the head once and they die. They jumped around. Some of them had sniper rifles. The Watchers were a bit more unique. They were these little flying kind of machines that would fly away if you shot them. They could throw grenades back at you. They could create shields for other, their allies. And then we had the Knights, which were the main adversaries, who were really tough. They could teleport. They had all sorts of tricks and teleportation tactics. They could be revived by Promethean Watchers. There was a lot of interesting military dynamics with the Prometheans, different from anything we've seen with the Covenant or the Flood. So I was definitely intrigued by the addition of them in the game. For the next Halo game, I want them to, first of all, add more Prometheans, more factions of Prometheans that we can fight. Maybe change up how they act, add some new weapons to the Prometheans lineup, kind of give them a new next-gen feel. I would enjoy that very much. Kind of like in Halo 2, how we had the Brutes. We had the Brutes as an adversary at the very end of Halo 2. But it wasn't until Halo 3 where the Brutes actually got their own armor, their own rankings. The Brutes had a wider diversity of weapons. The Brute Spiker and the Mauler and the Gravity Hammer were 3 Brute weapons that were added to Halo 3 that were not in Halo 2. So yeah, different changes like that. If they can take those changes, kind of have them for the Prometheans. This is the second part of the Reclaimer trilogy, the Halo 4, 5, and 6. So now that we're on the second part of the Reclaimer trilogy, I think it would make more sense to flush out the Prometheans a bit more and give them a bit more weight to their power. Okay, and then finally, number 1 on the list for the enemies that I want to return are none other than the Brutes. The Brutes have been MIA, much like the Master Chief. The Brutes have been MIA ever since Halo Reach, Halo 3. After the Prophet of Truth was murdered, the Brutes have not been seen. They were in Halo Reach because Halo Reach was a prequel, but we have not seen anything from the Brutes in Halo 4 specifically. There was one cutscene in Halo 4 where the Master Chief's fighting a Brute. Other than that, there's no Brutes. And I was confused because the Elites are all of a sudden in charge of the Covenant again as the Storm Covenant. And this is confusing to me because and if you remember in Halo 2, there was a mass slaughtering of the Elites. There's the mission Uprising where you play as the Arbiter and you see your fellow Elites just murdered by the Brutes because the Brutes are taking over the Covenant. So I'm not sure if the death of the Prophet of Truth made the brutes go into complete chaos, because it says on the wiki that the brutes need some sort of formal leadership. They need some sort of hierarchy and order in order to basically function. If they don't, they kind of resort back to their primal needs as, animals, kind of gorilla type, Chewbacca kind of warrior monsters. They're not civilized like the elites are, and so they need that formality in order to thrive as a alien race. So I'm not sure if that shift in leadership caused this. It's confusing that elites that are still loyal... First of all, it's confusing to me that elites would still be loyal to the Covenant after the Prophet basically slaughtered them. Like, the Prophets said that they wanted the elites killed and that the brutes were taking over. Like, the fact that their race was being hunted by the Prophets that they served for so many years, kind of confusing that they would go back and want to... that they would want to join the Covenant again. Although, we don't really know the goals of the Storm Covenant, to be quite honest. The goals of the Storm Covenant were never actually addressed. The only goals that we ever heard of, the main adversary, was the Prometheans. The Forerunners, that one Forerunner. The dreaded Didact, the Didact who I wish we had fought in a boss battle, but we didn't get a chance to. But it was mainly the Didact and the Prometheans and the story of the Forerunners that we were learning about in Halo 4. The Storm Covenant were kind of just there. They showed up, they were on Requiem, and they were kind of just trying to... figure out what the hell was going on, and they were kind of just fighting their own kind of fight. The Didact of, I don't know if he brainwashed them or convinced them to join the Prometheans to help them out, but there's really no formal leadership. You just see, it's almost like pirates. They're almost like Pirate Covenant. They're not the enemies of the game. They're kind of just there for you to knock down like whack-a-moles and kill until you can get to the real adversary. So we don't really know the goals of the Storm Covenant, nor do we really... obviously the elites and the Arbiter and the Good Covenant, they want to restore peace and kind of have more peaceful relations with the humans and other races, but we don't know the goals of the Storm Covenant, and so it's hard for me to predict if the brutes will return as the new leaders of the Covenant. Who knows? We might never see them again. I will be disappointed, because I thought the brutes were unique. They had a unique attitude, especially in Halo 3, to the elites. Although they did react kind of similarly, the structure, the fact that you had the chieftain, you had almost a hierarchy. So when you fought a pack of brutes, you had to choose which of the leaders you took out first, because it mattered ultimately, because they had stronger weapons and they had more power, basically. The elites, unless you were fighting an ultra elite with an energy sword, you could kind of just take out any elite you wanted. They all kind of had the same weapons, and they all kind of had the same hierarchy on the battlefield. That wasn't the case with the brutes, and because of that shift, I did like that was a little different. So that's the main reason the brutes are at number 1. Okay? Now, just like I said, there are many more adversaries that I did not mention. Some of them are reoccurring, like the grunts always show up in the Covenant, the jackals always show up in the Covenant, regardless if the elites or the brutes are leading them. The grunts and the jackals seem to always come. Same thing with the hunters. The hunters were briefly an ally to the elites in Halo 2, but maybe those were just kind of the separatist hunters, and maybe they were all killed off after Halo 3. I'm not sure. But, yeah, that's basically my thinking. There's a lot of different dynamics in terms of the enemies. And it's very complex, as you're hearing me say. It's complex how these enemies structure after the events of these games. So how's it going to occur? Obviously, it's great to see that the Arbiter will be coming back in Halo 5 through the cutscenes of the Master Chief Collection with Spartan Locke. Now that Spartan Locke is going to be hunting down the Master Chief. So it's going to be interesting to see what enemies we fight. I know for a fact, I'm going to go on a limb and say 100% we will be fighting some form of Prometheans. That was kind of confirmed in that trailer in Halo 5 when the Master Chief sees that giant Promethean robot fly over him. We'll probably get some form of Covenant, but what that is, I'm not sure, because the events of Halo 5 are completely up in the air. At least with Halo 4, we knew the Master Chief and Cortana were hurtling towards some sort of Forerunner structure, okay? With Halo 5, we have no idea what's going on. All we know for Halo 5 is that Spartan Locke is going to be hunting the Master Chief after he goes MIA because of the death of Cortana, and at least from the cutscene we saw, he goes to the Arbiter to get some backstory as to what happened. and or not backstory. He wants his help in finding him because the Arbiter and Master Chief fought alongside each other in Halo 3, so he wants his help and maybe get some knowledge from him based on the Chief. That's all the information we have. How the Didact's gonna, maybe if the Didact returns, who knows? It's not really confirmed if he's dead or not. How the Prometheans will come back, not sure. That's kind of all up in the air. But I hope they do it well. I hope there's a good amount of campaign missions, and I hope they take these enemies that I've suggested into consideration for the next game. So, or maybe even make some new ones. Maybe some new enemies, new Prometheans, maybe a new enemy type entirely. Maybe we actually fight the Forerunners, the actual Forerunners, not the Prometheans. Who knows? We'll see. So, alright. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Be able to thumb up the video if you want to. Comment, leave your suggestions, and what you think your top 5 enemies are. I always like to read the comments, and that'll be it for this one. So thanks for watching, and tune in next time. Thanks.